What a jerk. He's not sharing his world with me. He must not trust me. I can't trust him. He doesn't share his world with me.
She's questioning, well, if I open my heart up to him again, am I going to get hurt?
When one partner changes, even if we want it, it disrupts the way we have done things. Even if we want it, like I said, it's scary.
Therefore, she's got to test to see if it's real. And that's why she doesn't trust it, because he's tried things before. This is about providing stability and emotional safety for your wife and for your children. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of The Powerful Man Show. I am once again joined by my beautiful wife, Erin. She's here to give us a woman's perspective. Babe, thanks for being here.
Yeah, happy to be.
Yeah, this is great. We did one earlier I thought was so useful for the men going through. And guys, if you haven't listened to that previous podcast, go back and listen to that. Erin gives you a blueprint, if you will, on how to allow your wife to slip in her femininity. And another thing that comes up often for the guys is, and this happened just on a call that I was on recently, a guy was talking about, hey, my wife, she's seeing the changes. She's seeing me change, and she's seeing the differences, and she's loving it, but she doesn't trust it. She doesn't trust that this change is gonna stick. What's going on there from a woman's perspective?
Oh, so many things. And every time I come and speak after you guys run your retreats, sometimes I come in on that last day. It's always a question. So I know it's super, super common, both ways. When one partner changes, even if we want it, it disrupts the way we have done things. And even if we want it, like I said, it's scary. So there's many things that I think can be going on. But if there has been a pattern, and I'm just going to use the men because you've asked from this perspective, like that you have shown up and been really short with her, really cold. Just kind of, from your own place of hurt, not treating her with that much respect or admiration or desire. You're just kind of there. Roommates, sure, talk about logistics. Super boring, super unfulfilling for everybody, super hurtful for everybody. And then all of a sudden, you're doing this work with TPM and you're really learning all these things and skills and connecting to your power and yourself, which is going to result in you showing up in a way that you're proud of and showing up in a way that you would get results that you want and make her feel really safe and protected and admired and heard and wanted and given respect. It's new. There's probably been quite a few years of the other. So sometimes when we take I have done this versions of this exercise with my clients, but when we take the question like off of ourselves and we kind of think about it maybe from a couple different perspectives, like come up from a helicopter point of view. So like sometimes you can, an exercise you do, let's just use fathers for now. Like men, like think about your father or your father figure, whoever raised you from that perspective. Like you could fill in the blanks for anything. Like if you thought about your father, my father always X. I always felt X when I was near my father, da, 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 da. So there was a story written there in that relationship, whatever it is. I use positive, negative, and air quotes. It could be whenever I walked in the room, my father always looked up and made me feel like the most important person in the room. Or it could be like whenever I walked in the room, I always felt like I was annoying my dad and he was always too busy for me. Right? Like,
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. It's like you can think about that and think about right now, like how have you been as a husband? What would your wife say? And then you can think about that. And then also it's like, okay, also you're in a space of like, if you're in this program or listening to this podcast, I know you're really have the desire to deeply have more for yourself in your life and your marriage and if you're a parent, your fatherhood. So it's like, who do you want to be that your people can count on you to show up as? How do you want them to feel when you're around? Does that help, that perspective?
Yeah, it does. And so can I get my own twist on a little bit? So sometimes there's a couple different scenarios that play out in my mind's eye. One of which is we as men, we call it the activation method. That's our flagship program guys can go through. When they become reactivated, they start to become the man their wife has always seen them to be.
Yep.
because we talk about this, but guys, when your wife marries you, she not only sees who you are, but she sees who you could be.
Your potential.
Your potential. Yep. And she's looking for that. So men that go through the activation method, they get what we call activated.
Yep.
They go from deer, which is defend, explain, excuse, react, to wolf, wise, open, loving, and fierce. They go to the wolf mode and she gets excited. She's like, yes, finally he's here. And then also there's trepidation of like, oh, is this going to last? Do I, she's closed herself down. In a guy's eyes, she's become icy, cold, distant, maybe mean even, bitchy. But she's questioning, well, if I open my heart up to him again, am I going to get hurt? Right? So therefore, she's got to test to see if it's real. And that's why she doesn't trust it, because he's tried things before. Guy that was on a call earlier said, I'm doing CrossFit. I just signed it up. I'm doing a 6-week challenge. And his wife immediately said, yeah, you won't last. You'll quit. You'll give up. I asked another guy, I said, hey, are you doing your morning routine? He's like, yeah, every once in a while. He's like, but it doesn't impress my wife. I go, is it not impress her? Why? He's like, well, because I always start and stop. Again.
I was just going to say, for any human, but particularly in partnership, it's like what we want from a man is you to be your word.
Yeah, and consistent, right?
Be your word. If you say you're going to do something, actually do it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So there's two different things, right? So she could be not trusting it because the value, like you said, you've been a jerk for 7 years and you've been a powerful man for 3 weeks. She's got 7 years of evidence that you've been a jerk and only 3 weeks that you've been a great guy. So you got to give her more evidence and more consistency.
Yeah. And like the consistency isn't, let's just say, it's not just for her. It's it's for him first.
But it has to be for him. Otherwise it's that. So great point. And this is another thing I always tell the guys is if you're doing it for her, then it's not real. Right. If you're doing it for you, then it's easy to be consistent because it's just who you are. And as a result of that, she'll know it's real and it's going to last.
Yeah. It will feel, and I'm using the word feel on purpose, for women, we navigate our world through feelings. It will feel genuine to her. It will feel solid to her, even if it does feel scary. The energy, everything is energy, and the energy you're coming at it from matters. Like it's probably the most important thing. Yeah. That is, it's one of those things you can't track it or test it or see it or feel it. It just is. And it's like, who are you being and the energy you show up is when you're doing your, you don't call them sacred starts. I have that. What do you call it? Your in the mornings?
Alpha Rise and Shine.
There you go. Alpha Rise and Shines. And like the more connected you are to her, yourself, the more you're going to be able to be connected to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And the difference is, again, it's you do it for yourself, therefore it's going to last.
Yeah.
Right? It's got this stickiness to it.
Yeah.
It's rarer, but men will join the activation method, and during week 1, they'll go from literally having divorce papers given to them by their wife to turning their marriage around to being the best marriage ever, because the guy has drawn a line in the sand and changed who he is as a man, right? And when I say that, it's really like kind of, they asked Michelangelo, how'd you make David? And he said, well, I just chipped away the rock, everything that wasn't David. Yeah. And that's what we do with the activation method. We strip away all the BS for the men. And so they just become more of who they naturally are. Yeah. And the alpha reset, same thing. So when that happens, she can feel it viscerally and she knows it's true. It's when guys are dabbling with these changes that she knows, like, yep, it's the fad diet.
Same old.
It's a fad diet, right? You know, you're going to be doing carnivore, keto, paleo for 2-3 weeks, and I've definitely done that. And then after a while, you're like, screw this, I'm gonna have some pizza and a beer. So she's seeing that consistency. But when you show up consistently, and when she tests you, when women test consciously and unconsciously their man to see if he's shakeable, when you pass those tests, guys, she's going to trust you more and more and more.
And another thing is, again, I mentioned in the other podcast, in the masterclass, and I went deeper into this, but this is coming up for me, so I'm going to share it, is like a difference between men and women, like just is, and nothing's bad or wrong with it, but like estrogen brain and testosterone brain, like you guys talk less and it's fine. Like you get to the point and it's just the way you speak, right? It just, and there's a purpose behind it. And I'm not going to teach that right now, but like, we talk a lot more. I mean, it just is. And like, we like the details. So, an active partnership that men can do, which will probably feel really uncomfortable at first, is share more of your world with her. Why you're doing this, what you're committed to, what you want with her, what you want to create with her, like what you're committed to doing, to healing, to processing, to working through so that you can be XYZ for yourself, for her, for your family. Because what women do, women to women, is we share details. And the women that we share details with are the women that we trust. If we do not share details with a woman, first of all, it's weird. Second of all, like any woman in the room is like, something's wrong there. There's a breach of trust. Something happened. Or so in a way, I've done this with Doug and I've shared this before, like when he would come home or whatever, or like we'd be working through some challenging times and I would ask him like, hey, how did that go? But he'd be like, good. Before I knew this, or like, I would be like, oh my God, what a jerk. He's not sharing his world with me. He must not trust me. I can't trust him. He doesn't share his world with me. Can be what's happening on like a biological level. And it's not even like a conscious choice level. But that for sure dynamic happened between you and I before. Now I laugh when he gives me his 1-word answers. And he also knows, he always asks me, he's like, do you want the short version or the meadow? And I'm like, every single million, 100,000%, that's not even a number, time. I want as many details as possible. So a really big act of partnership is you can do is share more of what you're doing and why and what you're learning and what you've worked through with her.
Yeah, we could do a whole podcast on the meadow and what that analogy. We've done it before, but maybe we'll do that the next one if you have time to stick around. We'll record another one and talk about the meadow. But what Erin's talking about is, when your wife said, hey, how's your day? What do we say? Good. Mm-hmm. And you walk away. What you're saying is for women to relate to each other, you share a lot of the details of what's going on, and that builds trust. And sometimes as a man, it seems like they're not even friggin' listening to each other. They are, they're not. It's just a different form of communication.
We communicate very differently.
Yeah. So what you can do is give your wife, again, I always use the analogy, speaking a different language. It's not manipulation. Some guys are like, oh, am I manipulating her? No, you're learning to speak in her language because you love her and you want her to feel heard. You want her to feel that you care. Mm-hmm. So you're just learning a different way of doing it. Mm-hmm. And that's why I ask you, and sometimes I still don't do it. And you're like, give me the details. Tell me more.
Yeah, I don't take it personally anymore.
Yeah. And we'll joke around about it a little bit. And to your credit, sometimes I'm like, no, I don't want to talk about it. Because sometimes for guys, it can be exhausting. Mm-hmm. Right? It can be. Not always, but it can be. But yeah, so that's something you can do for your wife if you just tell her. And tell her about this podcast. Right, that's something that a guy could do if his wife's seeing the changes but not trusting. Share this podcast and listen to it together, and then talk about it.
Have a shared experience.
Yeah. What did you get out of what Erin said or what Doug said? Interesting. I got a different perspective because I can almost guarantee you that she's going to hear something different than you're hearing as the man, right? In the same podcast, and that's why they don't, eyewitness testimony. They don't take it in some courts because you could see a traffic accident and two different people have two different perspectives of what happened. Mm-hmm. So it's the same thing with listening to us. But you can use a podcast like this, especially the ones that Erin's on. I had a guy yesterday, you like this, ask me, he said, Doug, what podcast should I listen to with my wife? Because I want to, he's been in the program for different programs we have for over 2 years. Great guy. And I said, share the ones that Erin's on because now you have a woman's voice and a man's voice, and you guys can now create a dialogue around that. Mm-hmm. And just say, hey, this is the stuff I'm learning. What do you think?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people also, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but they give me coffee because I've been sick, so to keep me going. A lot of people think they hear the word the powerful man, they think of this kind of macho, like we hate women. It's the opposite. It's the power from what's inside of a man. How do you tap into your inner power is really what it's about. So that's also a way you can just share with your wife what you're learning, what you're studying. You and I are always growing and learning, and we exchange it all the time. And that, to your point, builds trust. I'm getting into your world. I'm letting you into mine. And so we're now sharing, which naturally builds trust.
Yeah. And I just like for the ladies, like respect that it's not as natural for them. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with men. They don't share the way we do. They don't relate to sharing details that we do. So when he does, like just know he's most likely probably coming from a really good place, trying to really connect with you. And it is an active partnership to do that, to learn a way to connect with your partner and honor it and respect it. And it might be bumpy at first because it's new and different. Whenever Doug and I go through different phases of learning new things, like it just is.
Yeah.
There's always a bumpy phase.
Yeah. It's like learning to ride a bike.
Yeah.
You don't just stop. I heard a great analogy. Someone said, oh, I'm trying this. It's just not working. And somebody else said, oh, you got kids? Like, well, yeah, I have kids. Oh, so when your baby got up and tried to start walking and fell down, do you just give up on them? Well, no, you don't. You keep trying and trying and trying. I'm also laughing because I'm remembering a time, and I do this with some of our female coworkers that know this. I'll ask them, like, do you want the meadow? And they always say yes.
100%.
So, but I go, I have to sigh because I have to get ready. Like, okay, here we go.
Build up the energy.
Yeah. I got to give you all the details. She was wearing a red dress, and this is what she said, but she didn't say this. She said that, and then yeah. Where guys would leave out all those details.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Exactly. So what we said earlier is like, I want you to be happy. I love you. I want you to be happy. So why wouldn't I, if it's not, hard for me to do, which it's not, why wouldn't I give that to you by communicating differently when I can?
Yeah.
And vice versa. You got to remind me sometimes. And sometimes also I get the opportunity to say no, not now. And I get to be respected in that area.
Yeah. And the other part that comes from you sharing your world with her and creating trust with you, her man, will lead to feeling safe.
Yes.
Like, I just want to exhale when I say the word safe, because it's, oh man, we did a whole thing on this too. Like, the men and women's relationship to safety is very, 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 very different.
Completely different.
And so for her to feel safe with you, to have a safe place to land, to share, to cry with, to know like she can release her emotions with, to be in her femininity, to just be, like, that is a beautiful place to be, and where you can really build a beautiful partnership and rebuild and heal from.
And that's a really good point, because starting off with this was like, okay, I'm making the changes. She's liking them, but she doesn't trust it. If you don't have that underlying current of safety, she can't trust it, right? Naturally. And I remember one time, I distinctly remember that you telling me, like, I don't feel safe around you. And I was just like, first of all, I got pissed. I got angry. I've never hit a woman before. I've never even done anything to physically hurt a woman. How could you not feel safe around me? Of all the men out here, I'm probably the safest. At the time I was in great shape. I was athletic. I did boxing and did jujitsu. I'm like, you're safe. Like, you're physically safe. No other man's going to hurt you, right? I can protect you physically. I wouldn't hurt you. I was offended. How dare you say I'm not safe? I felt like you were questioning my manhood. And really what you were saying is I don't feel emotionally safe. Which that was like, I don't even freaking know what that means.
I remember very clearly.
And that's why I love telling that story, because that was such a long journey for me to try to figure out, what the heck does emotional safety mean? And as men, some guys just get it. I didn't, though. I grew up in a house with all guys, played sports with all men, was in like fitness business and just in business. So tell me, from your perspective, real quick, give me the non-meadow. Give me the direct to the point. What does emotional safety for a woman look like?
I'm going to give you the non-meadow, and then I'm going to give you a different perspective.
Fair enough.
So the non-meadow place is, like, simply said, it's you, her man, are the place that she knows she can come to and share her whole self. We as women, we have a very big range. We can become very untapped to it, but a range where we can come to you and cry in your arms, and you're going to be able to handle it. You're not going to try and fix it or stop it or be uncomfortable or joke it away. Because for us to be in our femininity, we need to, we just experienced this with our daughter, but like we get to actually feel our feelings, process them, share them, move through them, and they're out. Suppressing them, not having a place where we feel like we can go to our man and be like, I'm having a really hard time with this, or I just need to cry. I need to cry to move this out of me, and I want you to hold me. Like, that is emotional safety, just kind of in a nutshell. Or opposite, she can show up to you and be like, I'm so fucking pumped. Like, this just happened at work, and you're going to be genuinely excited for her, because you're her man. Like, you're going to be happy for her happiness sake. So it's like the range of emotions you can handle. Like I said, you're not going to try and fix them, joke them away, tone them down because they're too big for you. Because for her, like I mentioned before on a different podcast, our feelings live right here. Mm-hmm. We live our world by our feelings. So when we have a safe place we can go with them, particularly our man, it's a really big trust builder, connection builder, intimacy builder.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's guys get this when they go through the activation method, but specifically when they go through the alpha reset, which is a 4-day experience that the guys go through. We're having one here at the ranch, the TPM ranch, in a little bit. And that's when they get to really get this, what emotional safety is at a core level, because they can tap into themselves. They become reactivated in a much stronger way. And so for so many of us guys, you can kind of get it logically a little bit, but it has to be almost experienced.
Yeah. And the longer part, like, it's interesting. I was having a conversation with some of the coaches that work at TPM about safety and the difference between a man's and a woman's relationship to safety. Do you want to go there?
Sure.
Okay. So some men might know this, some don't, but like for women, we are part of our diffuse awareness. A huge percentage of it is always used to monitor if we're safe or not. Constant. It's not even, it is conscious because we know we need to do it to stay safe, but it's not like we're making it happen. It just is. So it's like things like we're constantly going out to a car. We're taught to carry a key a certain way, or like, you've bought me mace, or like there's certain things, like we were in Hawaii for vacation and we were trading mornings about who gets to go out and go for a walk while the kids are still sleeping. And like, I was scared to go while it was still dark, because there are bad men out there. Men are not bad, but there are bad men out there. So I would wait until it was a little bit lighter. Doug wouldn't even think about it. He goes out, it's pitch black. Doesn't even faze you. Women, we have to think differently. And like, I'm just like, there's a huge percentage of our diffuse awareness monitoring our safety literally constantly.
Yeah.
This is your daughters, your wife, your mothers, your aunts, every woman you know. So because you guys have testosterone, a much higher percentage, 15 to 30%. So that testosterone just gives you an innate, you are so much stronger than us. Even if I'm standing next to a guy that I'm taller with and bigger with, he can hurt me. He is stronger. And I work out and I take care of myself. Like, he could hurt me very badly. So like, you guys just have a relationship to your strength. Like, yeah, we're just like, you don't even think about how, like, you're just strong. You just are. And with that strength, there are bad men that could and do hurt and rape and kidnap and do lots of bad things to women. So our safety meter is always on.
Yeah.
Just so.
As it should be, though. I mean, in fact, someone sent me a video, was a young girl. She happened to be 20, and I'll shorten it the best I can. But she was saying, hey, I just left Walmart. And I was in Walmart, and a guy in a Walmart vest came up and said, hi, my name's Nick, what kind of car do you drive? Because it's being towed. She told him. Anyway, she exchanged information. The guy was on speakerphone. Turned out there was another person that they believe was waiting for her by the car. She was smart enough, at least. Another man came up and the guy started being inappropriate towards her. Told the guy to, hey, leave her alone. Mm-hmm. She went and talked to the Walmart customer service and said, hey, look, why are you towing my car? Because she still thought her car might be being towed. The manager came out and said, no, we don't do that. Second of all, the guy you're describing is not an employee or an associate, I think,
Scary.
here.
Yeah.
They walked her out. They made her use they brought plastic bags to touch under the door handle because apparently, people put things that'll make women knock out. And then Walmart did this. The Walmart employee that happened so much at this particular Walmart, apparently, according to this video I got, they brought out an AirTag detector. They detected her AirTag, then also detected another one that they found under the hood of her car.
Gross.
So somebody would have been tracking her and following her. And I share that with you. One is because it's scary. Two is I want you to be safe. But three, for a man, like wouldn't even cross my mind.
Like, when's the last time you were scared for your physical safety?
I can't even. I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know.
I bet
and
you
we've
ask-
been all over the world. Right?
Yeah,
I
any
travel all over the
women
world.
in its daily is probably yesterday. Yeah.
Well, yeah. You and I were at an event, and gosh, there was thousands of people there at this event. It was a personal development event over a decade ago. I don't know how many thousand were there, 5,000 or so, maybe. And at the event, everybody was told to stand up, and it was like, hey, if you feared for your life in the past, I don't know, I can't remember the time. Let's just say for the shorten this up, past week, if you feared for your life, stay standing. If you haven't, sit down. 99% of the man sat down. Not one woman sat down. Then it went down to as far as if you feared for your life in the past 24 hours, stay standing. And there were a large percentage of women standing, and we had been at that conference for 3 days. That meant at that hotel, at that event, there were women that have feared for their lives.
Or had to think differently. Like, do I walk back to my hotel alone? No is the answer. Do I, make arrangements so somebody can walk me because now it's going to be dark? We have to constantly think in a way to protect ourselves the best we can.
So bringing this back full circle to emotional safety, a woman is always conscious of safety, whether it be physical or emotional. Physical is one element, and most of the men listening to this can physically protect their wife. But emotionally safety, they become the intruder in their own house, which is a scary thing to think about.
Yeah. And nobody wants that. And nobody's intention is ever that. But
No.
Yeah.
No guy listening to this has malintentions towards, he might be mad and pissed at his wife right now, but he wouldn't be bettering himself, right? That's what makes the TPM program so amazing, is these are amazing men that are there to better themselves for their families. And those are all great guys. Yeah. This is super helpful. Thanks again. I know the guys are going to get a lot of information through here. And gentlemen, if you're interested in becoming activated, going through the activation method for relationships, our flagship program, go over to thepowerfulman.com/apply now. That's thepowerfulman.com/apply now. Get activated so you can provide safety in your home. And I'm not talking about physical safety, guys. It's not about getting an AR or whatever. This is about providing stability and emotional safety for your wife and for your children. And as men, we're not taught how to do that. You can't take jiu-jitsu classes to learn how to provide that kind of safety. So make sure you become activated. If you don't go through the TPM programs, go somewhere, find out how to do this. I was never taught it. No man I've ever met was taught how to provide this level of safety. And as a man, that's something I want to do. I want to make sure my family feels safe and feels comfortable. And that's paramount. And I know you want it too. So as I always say, in the moment of insight, take massive action. We'll see you next time on the TPM show.